Hi, my name is Ian Hesketh and I'm the International Missions Director for Elim UK. Over the years we've sent hundreds of missionaries across the globe to make much of Jesus. And in the days that lie ahead, we are going to be seeking to equip hundreds of more missionaries to train thousands of disciple makers to reach millions of people until there's nowhere left to go. We want to plant multiplying gospel communities in every nation until Jesus is made famous and as many as possible can encounter him with the good news. So why don't you join us?
Hi everyone, I'm Keith Jackson. I'm an Elim pastor serving in Southern Africa as an Elim missionary along with my wife Barbie. We've been here a little over 18 months. During that time we've been learning language, acclimatizing, building relationships. I've recently started running leadership schools for our global partner Emmanuel Assemblies, and that involves training up lay leaders and pastors around the issues of church planting particularly, but general leadership as well. I'm also heading up the National Church Planting Program in South Africa for Emmanuel Assemblies. That's a recent development. We're really excited by that and can't wait for our own lockdown to be over so we can really get to grips with that. My wife is a trained midwife and nurse, and she's in the process of getting her registration here. That's involving a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy, as I'm sure you can imagine. Once that's done, we'll be opening a mobile antenatal clinic to take primary care to the villages that need it most. In the medium term, we're looking at a project to open up a children's home for HIV orphans and those who are most vulnerable. I hope you've enjoyed looking at one or two of the pictures of a recent church plant we carried out about 3 hours away from where we live. Let's turn to the Bible, shall we? Thanks for joining me this morning as we're going to continue with the devotions through the book of Acts. We've come to Acts chapter 8. I hope you've read it in preparation. I'm not going to spend time reading that today, but I do want to just draw out just a couple of things for us in the unusual times we live. The early church experienced an unexpected crisis. They were scattered. Acts 8 tells us what happened immediately in the aftermath of Stephen's martyrdom. And what happens immediately is the church runs for their lives. They scatter throughout the provinces that are known to them. They go throughout Judea and Samaria. We discover they begin to live in a new normal. I guess as our world at the moment is on lockdown, we're also living in a new state of normal. We might one day talk about what it was like to live before COVID-19 and what it's like to live after COVID-19. Things may not return to exactly the way they were before for a long time yet. This is the most significant event to affect the world in this generation, certainly in many people's living memory. Right now, we might just be holding on and just hoping that we can get through our own crisis. You know, in Acts 8, when the church hit their big crisis, when Stephen, their shining light, their up-and-coming leader, was martyred, we read that Saul, in verse 1, approved of them killing him. That same day, not a respite, not a chance to recover, not a moment to reflect or to pray or to seek a strategy, that same day, persecution broke out against the church. And the church, or everyone apart from the apostles, was scattered. I wonder how we react when we are scattered. You see, Jesus knew this day was coming. He told them in Acts chapter 1 verse 8 that, I know we've looked at that chapter before, but let me reflect there. He says, "You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, and all Judea and Samaria to the ends of the earth. He knew it was coming. He didn't tell them how it was coming. Now, there's something we need to grasp in that. The early church knew that it was in their DNA that they had to spread. It was their reason for existence, the command they were given, the commission in Matthew chapter 28, 19 and 20 was to go into all the world. Jerusalem, though, had become the center of everything. They'd become a centralized church. They'd become focused on that one city. Now persecution came and they were spread out. They were scattered. There was no internet, no Zoom, no WhatsApp, no Facebook, no videos that they could make to encourage each other. They were truly scattered. It may have even been that they were prepared never to see each other again. Did God cause them to scatter? I don't think so. I think it was the evil intent of the enemy to destroy the church. But to paraphrase Joseph, who spoke to his brothers in Genesis chapter 50, he says, what the enemy has planned for evil, God has turned to good to save many people. What the enemy planned for evil in Acts chapter 8, God turned for good. His church wasn't just scattered. His church was sent. What has happened around the world right now has been a plan of the enemy. His skill set is always around to kill, steal, and destroy. But what the enemy's planned for evil against the UK and other nations, God is going to plan for good, and the church will be at the spearhead of that good. Now, we can't meet together in our churches right now. We're hidden from view. We might run the risk of becoming complacent. But we have to realize we are not isolated in our communities. We're not even scattered there. We've been sent back there. The salt is well and truly out of the salt cellar. So they had an unexpected crisis, but then they had unprecedented power. See, when Jesus told them that they would go and be witnesses throughout the known world, before that he said in Acts 1:8, you will receive power to be my witnesses. We have the power of the Holy Spirit within us, within you, within me. You're not alone in the middle of the isolation and the trial. The Spirit of God is with you. You have something your neighbors may not have. You have the very presence of God with you right now as you're watching this little video. You have something your neighbors need. They too need the presence of God in their lives. So how do we get that salt, that message, to where it's really needed? In Acts chapter 8 verse 4 it says, those who were scattered preached the word wherever they went. Now one of them becomes a bit of a superstar, Philip. Philip is the first missionary in the book of Acts. He goes for it. I mean, he is just mad for it for God. And he goes out there, he's leading revivals in Samaria. He goes to the Ethiopian eunuch. He preaches there. I mean, he is just dynamite on fire for God. And it's easy in a situation where there's a superstar to overlook our responsibility. Verse 4 says, those who had been scattered preached. Everyone took a responsibility to share the good news of Jesus Christ. You know, when the early church was scattered, they did not agonize. They didn't live in fear. They did not criticize. They didn't blame Stephen or their leaders. They did not ostracize themselves. They didn't hide away, even though their very lives were at risk from those who wanted to chase them down and kill them. No, they prioritized. They put the gospel first. They shared their faith. We too have a responsibility to be sharing our faith in these troubled times. We need to find a balance somewhere in our lives as lockdowns and isolation carry on, a balance between hibernating in front of Netflix or sharing all kinds of fake news and fake prophecies on the internet that this is some kind of judgment of God against certain communities in our world. The truth is, those who bring hope live somewhere in between those two extremes. We mustn't shirk our responsibility. There has never been a time in which society has been craving human contact and community. I recently saw a picture that someone has sent me on the internet. It was of two men who were drinking buddies. Sorry about that, but that's what they were. They were drinking buddies. They missed going down to the pub with each other. So what they did is they removed a fence panel from their back gardens. They put two deck chairs at safe distance, and they sat and chatted whilst having their daily drink. Now, we can learn a lot from that. People still need community. They still need what we would refer to as an incarnate church, a present church. You can see that people are binding together in community like never before in recent history. 8 p.m. every Thursday in the UK, people are standing on their balconies and in their gardens clapping and cheering at the NHS and our key workers. I've seen videos of people doing exercise classes in their streets, again at safe distances, but every morning getting up and playing loud music and having a little dance in the road. But when they go back into their homes, they need something else. They need what you've got. Now, we are separated by fences and walls, and those things are there. But the real barrier that the church has always faced is getting over the embarrassment of sharing and talking about our faith in Jesus Christ. We know that Romans 1 verse 16 tells us that we're not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, for it's the salvation, power of salvation for those who believe. But the real barrier is sometimes we're more worried about what people will think about us than what they will think about Jesus. Philip in Acts chapter 8 had a barrier between him and an Ethiopian eunuch. It was a chariot that was moving at speed. So he ran next to him. Now, what a sight that was. What a crazy fool he must have looked. But Philip asks him a key question as he realizes what is being read. He says, "Do you understand what you're reading?" That's in verse 30 of Acts chapter 8. In this time, how we act is going to speak more to people about our faith than many other things ever have. We need to act as spirit-filled Christians. We need to act as hope-filled Christians, because that's going to make a difference to the people living to the left and the right and around you. So how do we spread the good news at this time? Call out to a neighbour over the fence, ask how they're doing. Ask them in the middle of the crisis that the nations are facing, do they understand that there's hope for them as well? Share something of your story, of your hope with them. Invite them for a virtual cup of tea. Set up a little WhatsApp or a Zoom call or something, and share tea and biscuits together and just chat. There are stories out there of people meeting neighbours they've never met before who live within a few feet of them. Take that opportunity. Leave a care package, just a few bits and bobs of groceries for someone who's elderly and shut in and maybe not able to go and do it for themselves. Just leave it on their doorstep. Do that old schoolboy game that I used to play of ring the doorbell and run away, but leave something on the doorstep for them. Tell your friends there's nothing to fear, even fear itself, even death itself, for both have been defeated by Jesus. My friends, as we meditate on the scattering of Acts chapter 8, why not be the scattered light in your community today? God bless you. Thank you for joining with me, and I hope to see you all again soon.